What if this Father's Day you gave your family a gift, and that gift was the gift of yourself? In this week's video, I want to discuss 3 ways that your secret sex addiction is robbing your kids of their dad. Hello again, friend and dad. Welcome back to Sex Addicted Christian. I'm your guide, Jimmy Trent, and we are here to crush the shame, cultivate community, uncover the unseen, and take action. I am thrilled to be with you guys today, and if you're watching this when it originally aired, this week is Father's Day, and I want to redeem this day for us. Before we jump in, though, I want to offer you, as always, my free gift. The 4 Pillars of a Porn-Free Life. It is a checklist guide, simple to work through each of those 4 pillars that I just mentioned. Crushing the shame, cultivating community, uncovering the unseen, and taking action. It's a simple guide, free gift to you. Click the link below in YouTube or on Facebook, or go to sexaddictedchristian.com, download it and get started today with your freedom journey. Now, back to Father's Day. I want to tell you a quick story about a year after I started my freedom journey when I sat in the parking lot with my pastor in Seattle, Washington. We sat in his car in the U District part of Seattle, just reflecting on this new life journey that I had begun. My wife and I had just had our first son, which was our 3rd kid, and he took this moment to speak life and hope into me. He praised God in that moment for how my son's life was going to look so drastically different now that I was beginning to walk away from my sexual brokenness, and also how much more equipped and ready I was going to be having walked away from my sexual brokenness when my son would later face those same troubles. Wow, how true that moment would eventually become. That boy is almost 10 years old now, and just this past month, we had to have one of those conversations. I had to chat with him about a neighbor kid who had forced a pornographic image in front of his eyes. It was devastating for me, but even more for him. The shame that he felt in that discussion brought tears to my eyes and anger into my heart. But we talked about it. I was ready for it. I've spent the last 10 years walking in freedom, not perfection, but definitely freedom. And my heart and life were prepared to shepherd and to lead him through that very confusing moment. Dad, I want you to be ready for these moments as well. Let's talk about 3 ways that your sex addiction is affecting your relationships with your kids. The first is that you may find that you are more critical and angry. Because sex addiction is so often accompanied with guilt and shame that persist within us, we often just turn that into criticism and anger with those that are closest to us in relationships. I remember this being one of my wife's biggest hurts as we walked through recovery from my sex addiction together. In those early years of our marriage, when I was living a secret life of sex addiction, she grew to believe there was something wrong with her during those years. I was often critical of almost everything, and this crushed her self-esteem. When she made this connection later on in our recovery, she became pretty angry, having believed for so long that something was wrong with her. But in reality, the whole time, it was my guilt and shame that was turning into a critical spirit in relationship with her that was bringing her down by constantly shaming her in my interactions. And for that, I was very sad. So our critical spirit and anger that come from the guilt and shame that we experience with our secret addiction is one way that it separates and hurts our relationships, specifically even with our children. Number 2, you are disconnected from those relationships. Again, the guilt gets the best of us in this experience, and we tend to push away from intimacy with others. You know that this secret addiction is a sin against your wife and your kids. And so part of the way that you deal with that is you push away from them. This keeps you from having to face the guilt as often. So you find other things to do or other places to be instead of with them. This is a devastating consequence as a father because you are missing out on so many wonderful opportunities to build closeness with those kids. So disconnection is the second way that your secret sex addiction is hurting your relationship with the children. Thirdly and lastly, regret. In all of this, as you live your life, you are constantly envisioning your future. Sadly, it's probably true that when you envision the future, you don't envision yourself free from this addiction. And so then you see your kids growing up and moving out, and in that moment, you are realizing that you've missed your kids' childhood. Sadly and unfortunately, that regret usually just fuels or feeds that same addiction, because you just keep going back to sex to remedy the pain or help with the disappointments that you feel in these relationships with your kids. I know you want more than that, but you just can't seem to find the courage to turn away from this porn addiction and begin to live a life of freedom. So regret becomes the third way in which you are hindering your relationship with your children. Critical and angry spirit, a disconnection from intimate relationships as a father, and regret. I want so much more for you as a follower of Jesus. I so desperately don't want for you to miss your kids' childhood and being a dad because you are living in the fog of your addiction. God has so much more for you. Decide now that you are going to live your real life. The life that has that kid in the living room right now watching TV, or outside riding his bike, or she's peacefully sleeping in her bed right now. Repent of this sin of sex addiction. Confess this to your wife and to a friend. Get help so you can enjoy real life. Give your child his or her father back this Father's Day. Good news for you. Your Father in heaven is waiting for you to return. He stands on the porch waiting and watching for his son to return to him from his sex-addicted life. He wants to lavish his love on you, clothe you in the grace of Jesus Christ, and throw a party. My son who was once lost is now found. So let me ask you today, Dad, will you come home? Will you come home to God who's waiting on you and to those kids who need you to love God and love them with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind? Turn from this sex addiction. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you. Jesus is here to empower you. He's here to forgive you. He's here to give you his spirit. You can overcome this addiction. You are not a sex addict. You are just addicted. God has more for you. Come get it. He wants to give it to you. And I love you. And I believe it can happen. So if you're ready, let me guide you. Download the 4 Pillars of a Porn-Free Life right now. Get started. Crush the shame of this addiction. Find the rest in Jesus Christ who forgives our sin. Get the shame crushed. Start building community. Start digging up in your heart and find out what else is there and why you are led to this sexual addiction, and come up with a plan of attack so you can walk in this freedom. It's free. You can click the link below and get it in YouTube. You can get it on Facebook in the link below, or you can go to sexaddictedchristian.com right now. Start your freedom journey. Come home to your kids. Come home to God. I love you. Happy Father's Day. See you next time. Go in peace.